Welcome, everybody. We have another episode of Cubs Now. Alex Cole and Lance Brostowski here. Chicago Cubs playing their best baseball of the 2026 season. 20 games over 500. That's the high mark for this Cubs team. Lance, a lot of reasons why this team is playing well. Everybody talks about the offense. Everybody talks about Pete Crow Armstrong, and for good reason. Let's talk a little pitching. Your favorite. What has stuck out to you when it comes to the Cubs, not just from their starters, but from their relievers as well?
Yeah, I mean, the big one that jumps out is Jacob Webb's had an unbelievable year. It might be a weird way to start, but I just think he's stabilized this team so well. I mean, I had a couple of conversations with him. He kind of widened his stance. Like when he comes set, it's a little wider than prior years. Carlos Pena was doing a breakdown on this in our pregame show the other day. That's kind of helped the velo tick up. They've reworked some of the breaking ball package, which looks very different than prior years, throwing a little more changeup to lefties. I love throwing it right to righties as well. I just think he's been like a weirdly stabilizing force on this team that, you know, you go back to our conversations in March and we're like, there's going to be someone that we're not thinking about that has a major impact, and to me it's been him.
The Brad Keller effect.
Yeah, the Brad Keller effect in a way. And I think he's just been unbelievable, and I think he takes a lot of pressure off what the pen needs to look like come October. Of course, we're assuming Palencia is back. Zeferjahn's looked pretty good, really fun sweeper, is going to miss bats, but I kind of think Jacob Webb is the guy you could put in the eighth.
I'd take Logan Webb too.
I'd take Logan Webb. That's an offseason project. Jacob Webb is the guy you could throw in almost any spot there. And I think he will be getting leverage outs in as big of spots as Palencia will be.
Before we get into the starter conversation, I want to talk about Ryan Zeferjahn.
Sure.
You trade Moises Ballesteros and Mason McGuire to get him. He's under team control until, 2030s?
Correct.
Give me your initial take on Ryan Zeferjahn. The results haven't quite matched, but in terms of stuff, the sweeper's great, the fastball's good. Give me, your 30,000-foot view of him.
The 30,000-foot view is, I haven't gotten a chance to talk to him. We've been on the road a bit here. I want to ask him how he got the walk rate down, because that's something that if you look at a lot of relievers in baseball, it's just a kind of a black spot on their profile where it's like, oh, the stuff is sick. He sits 97 and the sweeper's 88.
Topped out at 99 in Kansas City too.
And then it's like, oh, he's walking 15% of the batters he faces. So you kind of can't put him in leverage unless you're confident in him working with runners on in a one-run game. Over the last month, 2 months or so, he's had a 3% walk rate. And this happened right before he got traded over. I just want to know what happened. It wasn't something the Cubs seem to have immediately fixed. Maybe it's something the Cubs identified and went, hey, we actually don't think he's a 10 to 15% walk rate guy anymore. 10% or so is around league average for a reliever. It's more like 8% for starters. But he's a really fun name, and I think the idea here is even if, I assume he will be good, even if he slightly underwhelms this season, this was a win now and a long-term move, such that the goal is to get him right, have him be in an organization that I imagine does a better job from an off-season development standpoint than the Angels have done. At least talking to people in the industry, they generally struggle in that capacity. You get him in a good org in the offseason, you could then bring him into 2027, into 2028, and you can make material impacts on how good of a pitcher he is. That's the bet here. It's not that he's the guy that is going to pitch the eighth inning in the CS versus the Dodgers. It's more, this is a 4-year project to get him to be, I think, eventually the closer of this team.
So you talked about the walk rate being 15% really for the majority of his career, and then this year, and then 3%. Is the 3% sustainable? Is that what we're looking for? Or are you looking for, hey, let's get somewhere in the middle. Let's get to 8, 9%, because if you do that over the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to be a really valuable reliever.
I don't think anybody in baseball walks only 3% of the hitters they face. I'm trying to think maybe George Kirby's down there. I'm trying to think. There's probably a couple guys, but no, there's no way he's going to hold the 3%
I mean,
walk
even
rate.
Shota is a career low walk rate. He's at 5.
What was Kyle Hendricks' career walk? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I bet it's in the 5 to 6% area. So there's no chance he's holding 3%. But as you said, a lot of the time you just kind of split the difference. This dude did something unbelievable, and then he was more average at this. It's okay, if we project him going forward, and he's a 10% guy. If he's a league average reliever from a walk rate standpoint, he's going to miss enough bats, he throws hard enough, sweeper's good enough for him to be a plus arm out of the back end.
All right, let's talk about the starters. If we had this conversation a month and a half ago, we were asking ourselves, who's going to start the next game for the Cubs? Who are you getting up in AAA to come up? Is it Jordan Wicks? Is it Javier Assad going back and forth? Now you're starting to get an embarrassment of riches, not just the 5-man starting rotation they have right now, but 2 options who they've sent to the bullpen, and then Edward Cabrera. What has stuck out to you when it comes to this Cubs rotation? And then you get Kevin Gausman and you get Clay Holmes from where they stand now.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Boyd had a pretty good quote the other day, just kind of praising the entire staff and how well they've pitched. And I think that's the big thing to point out is that You go back to our conversations in June when you didn't have Cade Horton, you didn't have Steele, and you were kind of like, we were trying to figure out how to bridge to the deadline.
And Edward Cabrera was hurt, and Matthew Boyd was on his second ILs.
Exactly, and we were like, you're just trying to get to the point where you add pieces at the deadline. I don't think we expected them to be as good as they've been over the last month and a half, 2 months, arguably. Right since the break, they've third best ERA in baseball right now from a pitching staff standpoint. That's unexpected to me. I did not see that coming, and I think that is what Boyd was getting at. It's just everyone stepped up. I mean, Colin Ray's been a stabilizing force. Javier Saad is a magician with men on base. I still don't understand how he's able to do it. But he's done it for his entire career to the point where I look like an idiot saying that he's going to regress back.
At least you admit it.
I'm happy to admit it on him. He's unbelievable. But yeah, I think the key thing, as I was writing down like the names, we talked last year, I remember, about the pitching chaos at the end of the year. And I think even Craig Counsell may have used that word, or someone, coaching staff or front office used that word of just like, we're going to get bodies and we're going to match up the bodies in matchups, and that's how it's going to go.
And you think we're going to get that here in 2026?
It feels to me like you have you go into a 3-game series, you have Holmes and Gossman, the new acquisitions. Shota and Boyd have been in the rotation for most of the year. Cabrera's coming back.
David Peterson's been great.
David Peterson's been great. Again, he's in the additions category. I skipped over him accidentally. Cabrera coming back. Hasn't been that great when he's pitched, but we'll see how he looks. Ben Brown was arguably the best pitcher on this team until he got hurt.
Yeah.
So I think maybe he's the more natural fit to go to more of a pen role, but I don't know. If he stretches back out to an inning or two, I'm happy with him throwing 2 innings off the start of a game. So then you have Javier Saad, you have Colin Ray, again, 2 stabilizing forces I don't imagine or envision starting games.
I mean, this is what Matthew Boyd is saying. It's like we have dudes now. Like, we have guys now.
So I think, and again, we're thinking 2 months ahead, but this team's really good, and I think we can start doing this on every episode, thinking about how they sequence some of these starters in the postseason. I wonder if we get pitching chaos again, where even if one of those 7 or 8 guys we just mentioned is pitching well, you run into the situation where we just need Clay Holmes. Like, it'll be Shota to Clay Holmes to David Peterson, and that'll be 6 to 7 innings.
Or like a Peterson to Edward Cabrera, where you can mix and match, well, not only lefty-righty, but also pitching styles as well. You can get really creative with this.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be a hot topic of conversation in the playoffs, is like, how did they sequence starters? Who did they use when? Did Counsell pull the right triggers? Like, it's going to be lining up a lot. It might get a little uncomfortable in certain spots where it's like, ooh, do you use David Peterson in a pocket of left, right, left, when that righty is the more terrifying bat than the 2 lefties around him? A lot of those decisions, I imagine, are going to be Counsell-based. They're also going to be very numbers-driven by the front office, communicating, I imagine, down to field level on, like, this is what we think is optimal. Of course, Craig's going to have the ability to go, the feel element of a certain spot of going, no, I actually want him to go out for another inning here. And, like, you could say this about a lot of teams, but, a lot of the teams in the NL I don't think have this same strength feature, or maybe it's a disadvantage. The Phillies are going to roll Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez.
They're going to say, Christopher Sanchez, throw me 7.
You're throwing 7, man.
Luzardo, throw me as many pitches as you possibly can.
You can say that. The Dodgers' pen's fine. Tanner Scott's good. Diaz hasn't been good.
But they also have a lot of starters, too. Where
and I'm going to let those guys go 7.
Roki Sasaki, you're not going to start today's game, but you're going to throw, 3 very important.
But they're not going to pull Blake Snell in the 4th. They're not going to pull Yamamoto in the 4th.
No.
Those guys are going 7. The Braves have Chris Sale. I don't envision the Cubs having
Imagine telling Chris Sale, hey, you got 15 batters.
No, he's like, I'm going to give you 27.
Yeah, you're not taking me out.
But I think that is the main theme that I'm already thinking towards is how do they sequence all these arms, and do they do it optimally? And I know, again, it's multiple months away and such, but I think these next, 40 games or so are a huge barometer to help us understand which of these guys is the one you give the longest leash to. My lean right now is Matthew Boyd, and I think you agree with me.
I would think in game 1, it's hey, Matt, you're going to give me 5 or 6, and everything else, big question mark. Here's a big one. Here's my X factor.
Here's the preseason X factor for you, too.
It's Edward Cabrera, and I know this is in AA Knoxville, but you look at this line, 5 innings, no hits, no runs, 7 Ks, 1 walk. He's coming back healthy. He gives you so many options because, 1, he can be dominant. He showed that last year with Miami. And 2, he throws 99 with a 95-mile-per-hour changeup. You just don't see stuff like that from anybody else, whether you're in the Cubs starting rotation or bullpen. Where do you think Edward Cabrera fits into this for the Cubs? because you can say, hey, you're going to piggyback off of a starter. You could start a game, or like, hey, I'm going to give you 30 pitches. Just throw the crap out of the ball.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. I think he's the hardest one to place. I could see him starting a game in the playoffs. I could also see him piggybacking a lefty off the top.
Could you see him pitching an eighth inning, just like, hey, I'm going to throw good old number one, you hit it.
It's a great point. I wonder how much the Cubs are going to bias towards using guys in those spots who have shown the ability to pitch and leverage. Like, I think Palencia, Zeferjahn, and Webb are going to be a pretty good back end, such that if you're using
that is
Cabrera,
pretty good. Like, that's the first time I've really heard those three used in like the same sentence. I think maybe it's because Palencia has been hurt. But to have that 7, 8, 9 right there, like, or getting big outs in the fifth inning like Palencia did in the postseason, like, that's pretty good right there to get you 9 outs.
Webb has been the de facto lefty of sorts with Milner out as well. He's been very good versus left-handed hitters. So
because the changeup is a reverse split pitch.
Exactly. Yeah. It reminds me a little like Mark Leiter Jr. used to be the fake lefty. Of course, you still need the lefties. Milner's coming back. I imagine he'll fill that role in the middle innings, but I'm a little bit all over the place with Cabrera. I think he's of these names, he's the most difficult for me to project a role on, and also how he's going to do the rest of season. Listen, I get this is a good start, but I don't know how many double-A hitters see a right changeup that good. Like a couple of these highlights.
Oh, you mean like 95-mile-per-hour bowling ball
just
changeups?
Like it's one of those things. Like when I look at Jim Callis and I always talk about prospects in the minors, and sometimes he'll throw me a guy and be like, "Look at he's got like a 35% strikeout rate," and I'm like, "I bet he's a lefty throwing a changeup that no one has seen that is that good, or a righty throwing a changeup." Next thing you know, you look and it's like,
"Oh, it's a changeup."
It's just the righty never sees a changeup.
Right.
So that's my concern in terms of taking too much from this Cabrera start. But he's the hardest one for me to figure out what he ends up as. And again, I don't need to figure it out. They don't need to figure it out right now. But of all of these guys, he has, I think, the most at stake from a role standpoint going into the playoffs.
I would agree with that.
Based on how he throws in September for the Major League team.
I would agree with that. One other starting pitcher that I don't know that we've talked enough about. It's this guy right here. Not even a trade deadline acquisition. He was the first acquisition for the Cubs. And outside of one start that he had against the Cardinals, he's been tremendous. He's been really good. And I know he's one of your favorite pitchers that they've got.
I do. I think he's a fascinating arm, especially because of the cost they gave up. And they just made a good bet in terms of the Mets' defense not being great. There's some underlying luck things that I don't think were moving in his direction. And I think the Mets, in talking to some coaches on the Mets, like there were things they were starting to do with him, maybe a little later than they wanted to in terms of trying to get him to cut the fastball a bit more, jam that inside, get him kind of off plate. I think we talked, Elise and I might have talked about this, about the sinker was too much on plate, the four seam was too much off plate. If you could kind of move them both and shift them off mechanics, you could get him to a better spot. Hadavi and I talked about this as well for one of the days I did sideline. We were chatting through like how important it is for him to get four seam in to set up things away. And I just think it's clicked here quicker than perhaps it did with the Mets. So this was to me is like one of the better bets here from a what did you give up and what role has he played? He's a name that I can see starting a postseason game too. Is it one of the first three?
So he feels like a
Not
game.
Sure,
he feels like a Game 3 wild card starter and a Game 4 divisional round starter.
Especially if you like the matchup. Yeah, I think matchups are going to play into it as well. But yeah, he's been great. You got to hat tip him. He's been fantastic. That might end up as like the sneakier acquisition from a cost to the benefit he's had to the org by the end of the year. We might look back and be like, oh yeah, they got Gossman and Holmes, but like David Peterson was actually the guy who stabilized the team through September and allowed them to have a chance at taking down the Brewers in the division.
All right, speaking of sneaky and a guy who could pop up on somebody's radar, he's one of the best pitching prospects in the Cubs organization. He's had a down year, but he's been moved to the bullpen in Iowa. And in his first appearance in the bullpen at the Field of Dreams, topping out at 98.2 miles per hour. We know that he's really talented. We know for good reason why he's a top 100 prospect in baseball. Do you see Jackson Wiggins making an impact on this Cubs team in 2026 out of the bullpen?
I'm probably going to say no.
So risk adverse.
I'm a little concerned on a couple elements. The velo's been down most of the year. So like that is going to be a good indicator. If he is up, he's sitting more 98, then like my tune will very much change. I'm going to be a velo-driven analyst in terms of some of these guys who haven't shown it. The problem here is, to me, it's a singular pitch right now. This has been the problem. He just hasn't had enough mound time to figure out the change, figure out the curve, figure out the slider. So if he comes up, he's throwing 70 to 75% four seam. That has to be at 98 or better in order to succeed or have you be comfortable giving him innings. Maybe if he dominates in September, you get him in the role, which I always thought was the case, where he would be the Palencia of last year, where he's not the closer, he's your fifth inning guy with velo that you could bring in, but again, we're talking about Cabrera needing to kind of not prove it, but like show that he makes you confident.
If Cabrera has to earn it, then Jackson Wiggins has to do 2 times.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he dominates and he's 98 through September, yeah, he's going to force their hand on, like, we need velo. Like, the one thing I want to bring up here, and maybe we do it to start the next block. I'm going to tease it. I'm not going to bring it up right now. We're going to do it to start the next block. But I think perhaps they need velo in those spots relative to how their starters work. So good September, good 3.5 weeks from Jackson Wiggins. He can be
and he's sitting 98 and topping 99.
He can force his hand where it's like they look at the roster, build out, and they're like, I think we'd rather have the dude throw 98 by guys than a crafty righty in some capacity.
Okay.
So he could force their hand.
Lance teased the next segment. We're going to take a break here on Cubs Now. When we come back, more pitching talk and then some projection talk here on Cubs Now. Block B, Cubs Now here on Marquee Sports Network. Alex Cohen, Lance Brostowski here. Block A, we talked a lot about pitching. Lance teased one more thing that he wanted to talk about. Put a bow on it for me.
Yeah, well, it's a negative bow because I want to provide some cold water. I just think we got to be rational. Like, this team's been really good. Their pitching's been fantastic. I'm a little bit concerned. Let's say like 4.5 out of 10. You know, not above average concern that they don't miss enough bats.
That's your Switzerland concern.
That's my
right?
It's called the Switzerland concern. That they don't miss enough bats as a team to have this staff as a whole, the whole unit, be a strength in the postseason. Now, could they win it through offense? Yeah, right now, per WRC Plus is the best offense in baseball. They actually
which they have done. Big reason why they're 20 games over 500.
Totally. Yeah. So right now, third best ERA since the break. They're more like middle of the pack, 15th in some of the ERA predictors, which are looking at homers, walks, and strikeouts. The main reason they're more middle of the pack in what you'd predict for their ERA going forward, they really don't miss bats. 26th right now in strikeout rate. And you might go, well, they put the ball on the ground a lot. They're 15th ground ball rate. So their contact quality they allow is not amazing. They don't miss bats. You could argue to some extent they've gotten lucky a bit. And I do think that it's a subtle concern for me that when you get into a playoff series, I get this defense is going to grade out as probably one of the best in the last 20 years. But in the postseason, I think it's harder to actualize the defense value over a smaller sample of games, you know? Yeah. Like, you stack that up and it will matter on the margins, but I looked at the teams that strike out the most, the K rate since the break, okay? It was literally just every team that is good. The Yankees, this is 8 of the top 10. The Yankees, the Brewers, the Guardians, the Phillies, the Braves, the Astros, the Red Sox, and the Rays. Those are literally just like all the teams you're predicting.
Those are the 8 best teams in baseball, or teams that have just been playing incredible baseball over the last 10 years.
And that is, to me, that's like the one, if you want to knock this team, I know they've been great, and we just talked a whole 12, 13, 14 minutes about it. Projecting them going forward, I have a little bit of concern.
14 minutes of great and 2 minutes of you being a bust.
A little bit of concern. It's just something that's sticking in the back of my mind that it could be something they try to address. And maybe it doesn't matter when you start to stack some of these guys together where it's like Schroeder for 3, Cabrera for 3, Holmes for 2, someone else for 4. Like, maybe that helps boost artificially strikeout rate, but something to watch down the stretch. Like, I'm going to be keeping an eye on how many bats they're missing in September and figure out how much of a concern it is for me heading into the postseason.
Do you think some of the injury reinforcements that they are getting can help, I don't know, lessen that concern when you're getting guys like Edward Cabrera back, when you're getting guys like Daniel Palencia back, when you could potentially get Ben Brown back and get Justin Steele back? Could we entertain that question in September with guys getting healthy and be like, hey, I'm actually not that concerned about it?
Cabrera and Steele are sneaky guys that don't actually miss a ton of bats, oddly enough, despite the fact Cabrera throws like 99. Brown is the one that actually has the highest K right there. You know, like him and Palencia, if you get both those guys in, yeah, that would help me be a little bit more comfortable, I think, in terms of using those names in the middle of a game to help you inflate the strikeout rate overall. But yeah, Brown is probably the wild card. Like, it seems like we're going to get Palencia back. I don't feel like there's been a ton of reporting around what Ben Brown's role will be going forward. So he's maybe the X factor for me of like,
it's a big X factor.
He could throw 2 innings and punch a bunch of dudes.
He was an all-star the first half.
Yeah, I think that he's maybe the guy here that is the skeleton key to the end of the season. Let's say that.
All right, so Lance is being negative for the last 2 minutes. Let's go into something positive.
Yeah, catching the Brewers,
Cubs are starting to make up some ground on the Brewers. Do you think they catch him? And if so, like, what is going to be the deciding factor?
I think they have a real shot. You know, prior to Wednesday's games, it was a 72% chance for the division on the Brewers, 23% to the Cubs. So I think that's going to move a lot in the next 24 to 48 hours.
And then you say that was 95%, and the other 5% is just absolute bedlam.
Yeah, exactly.
With the Cardinals
it's
or
just,
the Reds.
You never know. You always have to keep that in there. And the other interesting angle that I thought was almost more interesting to me was the bye which is 17% to the Cubs. This was entering today, and 60% to the Brewers. So that is an interesting to me where it's like it doesn't totally line up, where there's maybe some subtle probability that either of those teams leaps up enough to take the bye down. This is partially because the Dodgers haven't been playing that good. You have a massive pocket of games right here coming up early September against the Brewers. You get them at home, you go to Miami for 3, and then you go to the road for 4 there. That's going to be it. You know, like maybe this ends up as a split, and then the next 2
Well,
or 3
then they
weeks
play
of the
Miami
season,
again, and then they go back on the road.
Yeah,
so
and they have some tough series.
They have
late.
a road series at Cincinnati, and then they have a road series to end the season against a Red Sox team that might make the playoffs. Like, it's not an easy September schedule.
Hey, shout out Craig Bresler. Everyone was bagging him. No one's giving him credit now. So we'll shout you out, Craig. We don't forget what you did in the Cubs.
Home against the Braves, too. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's some tough matchups late. But yeah, it does feel a little futile to like look at these odds and then see this pack of games coming up, because this could swing it. If they go 2-5,
they're probably not winning the division.
If they go 5-2, then
they might win the division.
You know, we're talking bye. So I think to me personally, the bye is far more important than the division. Like, the division's cool and like you get a banner and stuff, but like I want a guaranteed playoff series that goes 5 games. The baseball's so random and it's 3 games
The fans
set,
that are watching,
I
think they want them to beat the Brewers
I agree.
for the first full season since before COVID.
But if you're getting the bye, it's implied you win the division. You know, so like to me, it's like I would just rather have them get the bye.
I tend to agree with
Winning
you.
the division and no bye is like, yeah, it's kind of cool, but we still have to play a playing game and anything can happen in a 3-game series.
Yes.
You give me a 5-game set, like they did a great job at the deadline. You can almost argue that they should have done more, you know, because the guarantee of 5 games allows you to be more aggressive and pay more for deadline pieces. So, yeah, this is Clark.
Objects and mirror are closer.
The concern here, Clark, is his hands are not on the wheel, so I don't really know what's going on here. Who's driving the car?
Maybe his passenger.
I don't know.
I don't know who it is. All right, Lance. I'll sum it up. I think they have a legitimate chance.
I think they do too.
I really do.
What would you peg it at odds-wise on the division?
I mean, they have it at what, like 20? So it's 26% right now.
Let's say it goes to 30-35 after today, because the Brewers are going to lose and the Cubs are going to likely win.
I am seeing, on some of the odds where it's plus 210, plus 240 that the Cubs win. I think the value is taking the Cubs there. I think between them playing well for really the last 50 games and the Brewers not playing as well, they're leaking fuel a little bit. And the fact that the Cubs control their own destiny, they play 7 games against them. Fact, if the season series was done, that would change the equation a little bit more. I think I'm taking stock in the fact that the last series they played against each other, Cubs won in Milwaukee, and you have 7 games to really control your own fate. In September, I think the Cubs are playing better. I think the Brewers are leaking oil. I think they're going to do it.
So if it's priced at 30% division odds, you think it's more like 40% then?
To me, it would be a little bit less than 50-50, but somewhere in the 40s.
Yeah.
I think the value was with taking the Cubs.
And I think you're going to get Miz twice in that 7-game set. I'm guaranteeing that.
Okay,
now
but then the other ones, like, Kyle Harrison hasn't been pitching very well.
Yeah.
I mean, especially against left-handed hitters. They're starting to hit him a little bit more. And then Dustin May is their third starter. No Brandon Woodruff.
I like May. I think May's a very good pitcher.
He is, but I just think the Cubs are in a better spot right now.
Yeah.
The fact is they still have a deficit to come back from. So.
I agree. No, I think it's going to be that set of games is going to be. We're going to do a lot of previews on that here. We'll do recaps on it here. Like that's the season, man. Like I don't know. We always say this at various points throughout the year. We were like, man, that Dodgers series, of course, is a big one. Sweeping them is unbelievable. But at the end of the day, as you get closer to the end of the year, those games matter more from like a division probability standpoint, even if the wins technically in April count the same as they do in September. But that 7-game set's going to swing the season.
I mean, you got Crosstown, you got 7 games against the Brewers.
Yeah, the White Sox coming here. We're glancing over that.
You have the Braves coming in here. You end the season against the Red Sox. Man, I can't wait. All right, we got one more fun thing here. We've done this the last couple episodes. It is guess
Don't say
the
anything
player.
if you haven't. I need to see if I can get it.
This is not what I imagine.
Oh, this isn't ending as a Cub. Is not Cub related? Okay, Padres, Pirates, Red Sox, JD Drew. No?
All right.
I could be totally
2004 NL Rookie of the Year. Is it Jason Bay?
I got the J right. I think I was thinking of Jason Bay.
Let's go.
No, I wasn't.
That was tough.
JD Drew.
That was tough. Jason
That
Bay.
was tough, he says, as he gets it in 10 seconds.
He's
usually like 2 to 3 seconds, but that one.
I mean, that jogged my brain a little bit. Needless,
going off the board.
Useless information, baby. Lance, that was fun. Thanks.
Yeah, always fun, man.
Appreciate
Good talking.
All right, that's another episode of Cubs Now. Thanks for watching. Go Cubs, go, everybody.